470 days after he last walked to the octagon, Conor McGregor is back against Donald Cerrone at UFC 246 here in Las Vegas. 15 months since his defeat by lightweight champion Khabib Nurmagomedov. It looked like he might never return, but he insists he is back, perhaps better than ever. I'm joined by Chisanga Malata and Jim Edwards here to look ahead to Conor McGregor's return. First of all, Chisanga, let's go back to that night in October 2018. McGregor choked out in the fourth round, then of course the riots, then of course his interesting, let's say, 2019. Was there a point where you thought he might actually never come back?
At one point I thought that he might not, because given the wealth of riches that he's acquired, and especially the rumoured $50 million payday that he received for the Khabib fight, you always have to question a fighter's motivation to come back, and especially the manner that he was beaten by Khabib. He was manhandled, and obviously he came out with a retirement tweet again for the second time in his career. So I was actually thinking that we may have seen the last of him, but he's obviously proved us all wrong by coming back to face Cowboy.
Jim, I remember we stood outside T-Mobile Arena back in 2018, and we were so confident. We said, McGregor early, job done. We go on. In hindsight, looking back at that, even the build-up, his manner, how he was, did we sort of miss a trick and think? And actually, he was in such a wrong state of mind.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting point, because people have been saying all week that his mannerisms, the way he's been acting towards Donald Cerrone, his opponent, has been incredibly different. But I keep saying to everyone, I wish I could go back to UFC 229 and actually see what was he like during fight week. Did he kind of pull the wool over our eyes, as he might do this week as well? So I always think he comes into fight week with a real underlying confidence, and it still feels like he has been different this week, but he's still been confident. And I think, yeah, it's different, but I think if we went back to 2018, we'd still say that he was still very, very confident. And I don't know, maybe he was pulling the wool over our eyes, but I guess we'll find out on fight night.
Of course, this fight at welterweight, somewhat surprisingly at the time, and then of course at the start of this week, Conor McGregor said, I'm 10 pounds under. I'm going to hazard a guess that he was having us all on. He's coming at 170 on the button. So has Donald Cerrone. I mean, what does this mean? What do you think this means in terms of his plans for this 3-fight season this year? Does it mean I just want to have a fight at 170 to be comfortable, or is he actually thinking BMF, welterweight championship?
Yeah, 100%. He's got his eyes on the BMF title. I said it when the fight was first announced, and when everybody saw that it was at welterweight, that he was gunning for Jorge Masvidal, and that's what he's doing. Because obviously, you all remember Dana White was saying repeatedly that Masvidal's too big, which myself and many others believe he was planting the seed for Conor to say, come and fight this rising star if you want to prove that you're still the biggest name in the sport. And yeah, I think that's 100% what his plan is.
Do you agree, Jim? Because there's obviously we have the lightweight title fight in April between Khabib and Tony Ferguson. This has almost been touted as an eliminator for that, even though it's at 170. Do you agree? Is it 170 the future for Conor McGregor, or is it really the Khabib fight he wants?
I think he can fight at both weight classes, so I guess it's all going to be down to injuries. Who's going to be ready? Maybe one of Tony or Khabib will fall out in April and he'll slot in there. I'm gonna get a lot of grief for that. But I do think the next fight will be Jorge Masvidal. Jorge Masvidal's just released his own liquor yesterday, so there's a storyline building for that BMF title. But I just keep thinking we're overlooking Donald Cerrone this weekend. He's a very, very dangerous opponent, but I do think the next fight would be at 170 against Jorge Masvidal if he wins this weekend.
You're right, obviously, to mention Cerrone. He's mentioned a few times that he's finally getting the payday he deserves. Do you think there's any chance that he's happy with that money and almost just happy to be here?
I don't think so. I think, well, Cerrone's faltered in the big fights in his career. The title fight to Rafael dos Anjos being the biggest. So I think that he'll want to prove the naysayers wrong and that he can win the big fight. And what bigger fight than the biggest star that the sport there's ever seen?
And Cerrone's obviously, everyone thinks his best option is to take Conor down, perhaps take the fight into the latter stages. He sort of acknowledges that, but I also get the impression that actually he just wants to fight.
Yeah.
Do you think he will just go in and just take it, see what happens, take it as it comes, stand and trade, or will he be sensible and do what he has to do to give himself the best chance to win?
I think he will be sensible. I think it's great, a way to build up the fight, saying it's going to be a stand-up fight, we're going to go in there and have a war, but at the end of the day, Nate Diaz submitted him and no one was standing there at the end of the day going, oh, that wasn't really a real win, was it? if he submits Conor McGregor on Saturday night, it will be gigantic, and I think he knows that as well. Donald Cerrone does like to kickboxing. That's his kind of, and his Muay Thai, and that's kind of his go-to. But also he's very dangerous on the ground. So the submission threat from Cerrone is very real, and I really wouldn't be surprised if he does shoot for a takedown within the first few rounds.
Okay, finally, prediction time. How does it go?
Oh, for me, I think Conor's going to win in the first round. I think that Donald's going to bought into the narrative that he's a traditionally slow starter, and I think he's going to come out all guns blazing, and that's going to play perfectly into the counter-striker's hands that is Conor McGregor.
Jim?
With little confidence, I'm going to say Conor McGregor wins inside 2 rounds. I just will not be surprised at all if Cerrone gets his hand raised on Saturday. I just think he's a legitimate threat. He's being overlooked, a bit like Nate Diaz was in the first fight, and I think I will not be surprised if there's a similar narrative that kind of plays out on Saturday night.
Well, you can watch all the action on BT Sport Box Office, and we'll of course bring you all the results and fallout from Conor McGregor's return here at UFC 246.